It's 1942 in Algeria. World War II is raging across Europe, Nazi occupation of France, resistance fighters being executed. The world is descending into chaos and violence on an unprecedented scale. And a 30-year-old French-Algerian writer named Albert Camus publishes a short novel about a man who goes to his mother's funeral and doesn't cry, who has an affair the next day, who makes a friend, who goes to the beach, who gets too hot in the sun, and who casually ends someone's existence because, as he explains it, the sun was too bright. The book is called The Stranger, in French, L'étranger, 123 pages. You can read it in 2 hours. But those 123 pages would become one of the most important philosophical novels of the 20th century. Because The Stranger isn't really about a person who doesn't cry at funerals. It's about something far more disturbing. What happens when you stop pretending life has meaning? When you stop performing the emotion society expects? When you look directly at existence and see nothing but absurdity? The protagonist is Meursault. He's not evil, he's not traumatized, he's not mentally ill in any conventional sense, he's just honest. Brutally, uncomfortably, dangerously honest about what he feels, which is nothing much at all. His mother passes away. People expect him to grieve. He doesn't. Not because he hated her, not because he's cold, but because he doesn't feel what he's supposed to feel, and unlike everyone else, he won't pretend. He goes to the funeral, doesn't cry. The mourners notice, they judge him. Society marks him as strange, as other, as alien. A stranger among humans who all seem to understand rules he doesn't comprehend. And when he's eventually put on trial, not really for ending someone, but for not crying at his mother's funeral, for not performing grief correctly, for being honest about meaninglessness, society condemns him, not for what he did, but for what he failed to feel. This is Albert Camus's masterpiece, the definitive text of absurdism, the book that says, life has no inherent meaning and pretending otherwise is the real crime. And if you've been following this series, you'll recognize immediately, this is where we've been heading all along. Let's meet Meursault. Let's understand absurdism. Let's see what happens when you stop pretending existence means anything. Let's begin. To understand The Stranger, you need to understand Albert Camus, because this book isn't just fiction. It's philosophy disguised as a story, a manifesto about how to live when life has no meaning. Born November 7, 1913, in Mondovi, Algeria, not France, Algeria, French colonial Algeria. This matters because Camus was always an outsider, always between worlds, neither fully French nor fully Algerian, neither fully European nor fully African, always a stranger wherever he went. His father died when Camus was 1 year old, killed in World War I at the Battle of the Marne. His mother was illiterate, partially deaf, worked as a cleaning woman. They lived in poverty in the working-class district of Algiers. Poor, marginalized, invisible, but Camus was brilliant, got a scholarship, studied philosophy at the University of Algiers, read Nietzsche, Dostoevsky, Kierkegaard, the existentialists, the ones who asked, what does life mean when God is dead, when traditional values have collapsed, when existence precedes essence? And Camus came to a conclusion that would define his entire philosophy. Life is absurd, not tragic, not meaningless in a depressing way, but absurd. Like a cosmic joke, like Sisyphus pushing a boulder up a hill forever, like humans desperately searching for meaning in a universe that offers none. He called this absurdism, not quite existentialism, not quite nihilism, something different, something that says, yes, life has no inherent meaning. Yes, the universe doesn't care about us. Yes, we're all going to perish and be forgotten. But that's not depressing, that's liberating, because if nothing matters, then you're free. Free from the tyranny of meaning, free from the burden of purpose, free from having to pretend you understand why you're here or what you're supposed to do. Just live, experience, exist. Don't overthink it. Don't construct elaborate philosophical systems to justify existence. Don't pretend the universe has plans for you. Just be. This philosophy emerged from his lived experience, growing up poor in colonial Algeria, watching the hypocrisy of French civilization claiming to bring enlightenment while exploiting colonized peoples, seeing people perform dignity and meaning while living empty lives, recognizing that all the grand narratives, religion, nationalism, progress, were just stories people told themselves to avoid facing the void. By 1942, when he published The Stranger, Europe was destroying itself. World War II. Millions dying. Nazi ideology claiming racial superiority and historical destiny. Communist ideology claiming historical inevitability and workers' paradise. Everyone constructing meaning, purpose, grand narratives to justify violence. And Camus wrote a book about a man who refuses all narratives, who won't pretend anything matters more than it does, who lives honestly in the absurd without trying to escape it. The book was controversial immediately. Published during Nazi occupation of France. Some critics called it nihilistic, dangerous, immoral. How dare Camus write about a protagonist who feels nothing when the world is burning? How dare he suggest meaning is constructed when people are fighting for survival? But Camus wasn't saying nothing matters, therefore do nothing. He was saying, nothing matters inherently, so you're free to choose what matters to you. Don't let society, religion, or ideology tell you what should matter. Decide for yourself. Live authentically in the absurd. This connects directly to what we've covered in this series. The underground man saw through social constructions and became paralyzed. AM saw through meaning and became hateful. Meursault saw through authenticity and couldn't perform anymore. Satan saw through divine authority and chose eternal rebellion. They all recognized absurdity, but none of them knew how to live with it. The underground man retreated. AM tortured. Meursault disintegrated. Satan fought forever. Camus offers something different. Accept absurdity. Don't fight it. Don't retreat from it. Don't construct elaborate philosophies to deny it. Just live in it, honestly, without pretense, without performance. Meursault is Camus' attempt to show what that looks like. A man who won't pretend to feel what he doesn't feel, won't perform emotions society demands, won't construct meaning where he experiences none, who lives honestly in the absurd even when that honesty gets him condemned. Camus himself lived this philosophy. He joined the French resistance during World War II, not because he believed in grand narratives about freedom and justice, but because Nazi occupation was concrete, immediate suffering that could be resisted. He didn't need cosmic meaning to justify resistance. The suffering was reason enough. After the war, he became one of the most prominent intellectuals in France, wrote novels, plays, essays, won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1957 at age 43, continued arguing for absurdism against Sartre's existentialism, against Marxist determinism, against all philosophies that claim to know the meaning of history. And then, in 1960, at age 46, he died in a car crash. Sudden, random, absurd. His publisher, Michel Gallimard, was driving, lost control. Camus died instantly. In his pocket, they found an unused train ticket. He'd originally planned to take the train, but changed his mind at the last minute. The absurdity of his death perfectly illustrated his philosophy. No grand meaning, no cosmic justice, just random chance, existence as absurd as he always said it was. Now let's meet Meursault. Let's see what absurdism looks like lived. Let's watch a man who won't pretend existence means more than it does. And let's see what society does to someone who lives that honestly. The Stranger opens with one of the most famous lines in literature. Mother died today. Or yesterday maybe, I don't know. I got a telegram from the home. Mother deceased. Funeral tomorrow. Faithfully yours. That doesn't mean anything. Maybe it was yesterday. Read that again. His mother just passed away. And his reaction is, maybe it was yesterday, I don't know. The telegram doesn't tell me clearly. No grief, no shock, no emotion. Just practical confusion about timing. This is Meursault. This is how he experiences everything. With detachment. With honesty about what he actually feels rather than what he's supposed to feel. He works as a clerk in Algiers, lives alone, has a girlfriend named Marie, lives day to day without thinking much about past or future, just exists in the present moment. Eating, working, swimming, existing. When he gets the telegram about his mother, he asks his boss for time off. His boss seems annoyed. Meursault notices this, notes it, doesn't particularly care. Takes the bus to the old people's home where his mother lived, 2 hours away. He arrives. The director offers condolences. Meursault doesn't know what to say. The director asks if he wants to see his mother's body. Meursault says he doesn't mind either way. The director seems surprised but arranges it. They open the casket. The body is wrapped. The caretaker asks if he wants it unwrapped so he can see her face one last time. Meursault says no. Why? Not because he can't bear to see her, but because he doesn't see the point. She's gone. Looking at her body won't change that. The vigil that night. Meursault sits with the body. Other old people from the home sit with him. They stare at him. He feels uncomfortable, not because he's grieving, but because he's aware they're watching him, expecting something from him he can't provide. He drinks coffee, smokes cigarettes. The others seem shocked. You don't smoke at a vigil for your mother. But Meursault was offered coffee and cigarettes. He wanted them. So he accepted. What's wrong with that? At the funeral the next day, it's incredibly hot. The Algerian sun beating down. Meursault focuses on the heat, on his physical discomfort, on wanting it to be over, not because of grief, because he's hot and uncomfortable and wants to go home. He doesn't cry. The priest speaks. Meursault doesn't pay attention. The other mourners watch him. Notice his dry eyes. Notice his detachment. Society is marking him, recording his failure to perform grief correctly. He returns to Algiers. The next day is Saturday. He goes swimming, meets Marie, a former co-worker. They swim together, flirt, go to see a comedy film. She comes back to his apartment. They have relations. This is the day after his mother's funeral, and he's laughing at a movie and having intimate relations. Society would be horrified. But Meursault doesn't see the problem. He enjoyed swimming. He likes Marie. She wanted to come over. What's wrong with any of that? Days pass. He goes to work. His boss offers him a position in Paris, a promotion, a chance to change his life. Meursault says it doesn't matter to him either way. He's fine in Algiers, fine in Paris. It's all the same. His boss is frustrated. Don't you have ambition? Don't you want to improve yourself? Meursault doesn't really. He's content, not happy necessarily, not unhappy. Just existing without strong desires for change. Marie asks if he loves her. He says probably not. She asks if he'll marry her. He says sure if she wants to. She asks if marriage means anything to him. He says no, not particularly, but if it's important to her, they can do it. This is Meursault's relationship to everything. Honest to the point of cruelty. If he doesn't feel something, he won't pretend. If something doesn't matter to him, he won't lie and say it does. Then he meets Raymond, his neighbor, a pimp. Raymond beats women, gets in fights, is generally a terrible person, but he's friendly to Meursault, invites him over, tells him his problems. Raymond suspects his girlfriend of cheating, wants revenge, asks Meursault to help him write a letter to lure her back so he can humiliate her. Meursault agrees. Why? Not because he approves of Raymond's plan, not because he has any investment in the outcome, but because Raymond asked, and Meursault had no particular reason to refuse. The plan works, the girl comes back. Raymond beats her. The police come. Raymond lies, says she was unfaithful. Meursault backs up his story. The police let Raymond go with a warning. Society is marking Meursault again. He associates with a pimp, helps him abuse women, shows no moral judgment. What kind of person does this? But Meursault isn't making moral calculations. He's not evil. He's not sadistic. He's just indifferent. Raymond asked for help. Meursault provided it. He didn't think deeply about consequences or ethics. He just acted without overthinking. Raymond invites Meursault and Marie to a beach house owned by Raymond's friend. They go. It's Sunday, hot. They swim, eat lunch, drink wine. Perfect day. But Raymond's girlfriend's brother is there, an Arab man. He and his friend have been following Raymond. There's tension, potential violence. Raymond has a revolver. They confront the Arab men on the beach. Raymond wants to fight. Meursault talks him down, takes the revolver from Raymond, tells him to go back to the beach house. Raymond leaves. Meursault should leave too, should go back with Raymond and Marie, should get out of the sun and away from potential conflict. But he doesn't. He walks back down the beach, alone. In the blazing afternoon heat, he sees the Arab man, the one who was following Raymond, lying in the shade of a rock. The man has a knife, sees Meursault approaching, sits up. The knife reflects sunlight into Meursault's eyes. And here's where everything changes, where the whole novel pivots. Meursault describes what happens next, the heat pressing down, the sweat in his eyes, the light reflecting off the knife, the sun unbearable, everything becoming blurred, his hand tightening on the revolver in his pocket. The Arab stands, draws the knife. The light flashes again, and Meursault fires. Once, then, and this is crucial, he fires 4 more times, into a body that's already fallen. 4 more shots, deliberate, conscious, unnecessary. Why? He doesn't really know, or can't explain, or won't explain in terms society would understand. He says, it was because of the sun, not self-defense, not anger, not fear. The sun, the heat, the discomfort, the way the light reflected off the knife hurt his eyes. The physical sensations overwhelming his judgment. He fires because in that moment pulling the trigger seemed like the natural response to unbearable heat and uncomfortable light. Not moral reasoning, not self-preservation instinct, just pure reaction to physical sensation. This is the crime. Not premeditated, not passionate, just absurd, random, meaningless. A man ends another man's existence because the sun was too bright and he was too hot, and the trigger was there under his finger. And this is what society cannot forgive. Not the ending itself necessarily, but the meaninglessness of it. The lack of motive that makes sense. The refusal to construct a narrative that gives it purpose. If Meursault claimed self-defense, society could understand. If he said he did it for Raymond, they'd comprehend the loyalty. If he said he hated Arabs, they'd have racism to explain it. If he said anything that fit into recognizable human motivation, they could process it. But he can't. Because that's not what happened. He did it because of the sun, because of physical discomfort, because in that moment it seemed like the thing to do, and he didn't stop himself. The absurdity of existence concentrated into one moment, one action, one ending that has no meaning beyond the physical circumstances that produced it. And for this honesty, for this refusal to construct comfortable meaning where none exists, society will condemn him. Not really for what he did, but for failing to pretend it meant something. The police arrest him. He's put in prison, interrogated. And the investigation focuses not on the shooting itself, but on his character, on whether he's the kind of person who would do this. And the evidence they use? He didn't cry at his mother's funeral. He had relations the next day. He helped a pimp. He showed no remorse. He can't explain his motive in terms that make sense. Therefore, he must be a monster, someone fundamentally different from normal humans, someone who doesn't feel the right things, someone who must be eliminated from society. The trial becomes about his soul, not his actions, about whether he's fully human, about whether someone who won't perform the emotions society demands deserves to live. And Meursault? He watches it happen with the same detachment he's watched everything, interested, aware, but not particularly invested in the outcome. Still honest, still refusing to pretend, still living in the absurd even as the absurd destroys him. This is the story, simple, brutal, honest. A man who won't pretend existence means more than it does, and society condemning him not for what he did, but for what he failed to feel. Now we need to understand what Camus was doing, why this story, why this protagonist, what absurdism means, and why it matters. Why Meursault's honesty is both liberation and damnation. So we need to talk about what absurdism actually means, because The Stranger isn't just a story about a weird guy who doesn't cry. It's a philosophical argument disguised as fiction, and understanding that argument is crucial to understanding everything Camus wrote. Absurdism starts with a simple observation. Humans crave meaning. We need to believe our lives matter, that our actions have purpose, that existence makes sense. This isn't weakness. It's fundamental to human psychology. We're meaning-making machines. We can't help it. But here's the problem. The universe doesn't provide meaning. It's indifferent, doesn't care about us, doesn't have plans for us, doesn't reward good or punish evil except by accident, just exists without purpose or direction or concern for human desires. This creates what Camus calls the absurd, the gap between human need for meaning and the universe's refusal to provide it. We're conscious beings demanding answers from an unconscious cosmos. We're meaning seekers lost in meaningless infinity. This is the human condition, and recognizing it leads to crisis. What Camus calls the fundamental question of philosophy: should I take my own life if existence has no inherent meaning, if the universe doesn't care, if we're all going to perish and be forgotten? Why continue? There are three traditional responses to absurdity. Camus examines all three and rejects them. First response: suicide. If life is meaningless, end it. Stop the suffering. Escape the absurd through non-existence. Many philosophers and religions essentially recommend this. Not literal self-termination always, but rejection of earthly existence in favor of death or transcendence. Camus says, no, ending your existence because of absurdity is admitting defeat. It's letting the universe win. It's saying that meaning matters so much that without it, existence is unbearable. But that gives meaning power over you. That makes you a slave to the need for meaning. Second response: philosophical consideration of the divine or spiritual realm, religion, metaphysics, belief in God, afterlife, cosmic justice, constructing meaning through faith. Kierkegaard's leap of faith, Dostoevsky's Christianity. Any system that says, yes, earthly existence seems meaningless, but there's a higher meaning we can't fully grasp. Camus calls this philosophical self-termination. You're ending your existence in the absurd by escaping into comforting illusions. You're pretending the universe has meaning when it doesn't. You're lying to yourself. Better than actual ending, perhaps, but still a refusal to face reality honestly. Third response: grand philosophical systems, Hegel's dialectics, Marx's historical materialism, Nietzsche's will to power. Any ideology that claims to have figured out the meaning of existence, that says history has direction, progress has purpose, human action serves some grand narrative. Camus rejects these too. They're just more elaborate forms of philosophical consideration of higher powers, more sophisticated lies. They give you meaning by telling you that you're part of something bigger than yourself, that your individual meaninglessness doesn't matter because the collective has meaning. But Camus says, all of these are escapism, all refuse to face the absurd honestly, all try to make the meaningless meaningful through various forms of denial. So what's the alternative? What's the fourth response? Camus's answer: revolt, accept absurdity, live in it. Don't try to escape it, or deny it, or overcome it. Just face it honestly and live anyway. This is what Meursault represents: a man who faces absurdity without flinching, who won't construct meaning where none exists, who lives honestly in the gap between human desire for purpose and the universe's indifference. He doesn't pretend to grieve when he doesn't feel grief, doesn't pretend relationships mean more to him than they do, doesn't pretend his work matters, or that ambition is important, or that any of the performances society demands have inherent value. He just lives, day to day, moment to moment, experiencing what he experiences, feeling what he feels, being honest about it all. This is revolt. Not rebellion against authority like Satan, but revolt against the human need for meaning itself. Refusal to lie about existence, acceptance of absurdity combined with determination to live anyway. Camus uses the myth of Sisyphus to explain this. Sisyphus was punished by the gods to push a boulder up a hill forever. Every time he reaches the top, the boulder rolls back down. He has to start over, eternally, meaninglessly. This is the ultimate absurd existence, effort that accomplishes nothing, repeated forever. But Camus says, imagine Sisyphus happy. Imagine him accepting the absurdity, not hoping the boulder will stay at the top, not pretending his labor has cosmic purpose, just pushing the boulder, because that's what he does. Finding satisfaction in the effort itself, not in achieving some goal. That's absurdist freedom, liberation from meaning. You don't need your life to mean something to justify living it. You don't need cosmic purpose to find satisfaction. You just live, experience, exist, and that's enough. Meursault lives this until the ending. He doesn't need his mother's passing to mean something profound. Doesn't need his relationship with Marie to be cosmic romance. Doesn't need his work to be meaningful career. He just exists in each moment honestly. Even the ending. He doesn't construct elaborate justification, doesn't claim self-defense he didn't feel, doesn't invent meaning where none existed. Just says, it was because of the sun, because that's honest, that's what happened. Physical discomfort led to action, no deeper meaning required, and this honesty is what society cannot tolerate. Because if Meursault is right, if existence really is absurd, if meaning really is just constructed performance, then everyone else's carefully maintained illusions are exposed. Everyone else's pretense of purpose is revealed as desperate lying. So society condemns him, not for ending someone. They could forgive that with the right narrative, but for refusing to construct the narrative, for being honest about meaninglessness, for living in the absurd without shame or pretense. The trial is society defending itself against the truth Meursault represents, defending the necessity of performing meaning even when meaning doesn't exist, defending the lies that make social life possible. This connects to everything we've covered. The underground man saw through social illusions and became paralyzed. AM saw through purpose and became hateful. Yozo saw through authenticity and couldn't perform anymore. Satan saw through divine meaning and chose eternal rebellion. They all recognized absurdity, but they all suffered from it. The underground man was miserable. AM was tortured. Yozo disintegrated. Satan was damned. Only Meursault accepts absurdity without suffering, without rebellion, without retreat. He just lives in it, honestly, simply, without constructing elaborate philosophies to deny it or overcome it. This is what makes him dangerous to society. Not that he ended someone. Society does that all the time through war, execution, violence. But that he won't lie about why. Won't construct meaning that makes everyone feel better about the meaninglessness. The prosecutor at his trial says Meursault has no soul, and in a way he's right. If having a soul means performing emotions you don't feel, constructing meanings you don't believe, maintaining illusions that make social life comfortable, then Meursault has no soul. But Camus is asking, is that really what we want? Is pretending better than honesty? Is constructed meaning better than accepting meaninglessness? Is the comfortable lie better than the uncomfortable truth? Meursault's answer, and Camus' answer, is no. Better to face absurdity honestly, better to live without illusions, even if it makes you a stranger among people who need their illusions. Better to be alone in truth than connected through lies. This is radical honesty taken to its conclusion. No performance, no pretense, no constructed narratives. Just direct experience of existence without interpretation or meaning-making. And for most people, this is impossible. We need meaning too much, need purpose too desperately, need to believe our lives matter, need to feel our emotions are valid, and our relationships are significant, and our work has value. Meursault doesn't need any of that. And that's what makes him a stranger, not strange exactly, but strange to us. Foreign, alien. Someone who lives by completely different rules. Someone who's honest in ways we can't be. Someone who faces what we refuse to face. And society's response is, eliminate him. Remove this reminder that everything we believe is constructed. Silence this voice that says meaning is illusion. Condemn this person who won't perform the lies that hold society together. But Camus is showing us this is what honesty looks like. This is what living in the absurd actually means. This is the price of refusing comforting illusions. And the question the book leaves you with is it worth it? Is Meursault's honesty better than everyone else's comfortable lies? Is living in the absurd preferable to constructing meaning? There's no easy answer. But Camus thinks Meursault is heroic, not good necessarily, not admirable in conventional ways, but honest, free, living authentically in the absurd without escape or denial. And for Camus, that's the highest achievement possible for conscious beings trapped in a meaningless universe. Not to overcome absurdity, that's impossible, but to face it without flinching and live anyway. That's revolt, that's freedom. That's what The Stranger is really about. So let's talk about the trial, because this is where The Stranger reveals what it's really about. Not a story about ending someone, but a story about society defending itself against honesty. The trial focuses almost entirely on Meursault's character, not his actions. The prosecutor doesn't spend much time on the actual incident. Instead, he reconstructs Meursault's life, his behavior, his failures to perform correctly, the evidence. He didn't cry at his mother's funeral. He drank coffee and smoked during the vigil. He went swimming the next day. He started a relationship immediately after. He helped a pimp. He showed no remorse. He can't explain his motive in terms society recognizes. The prosecutor argues this is a man with no soul, no moral sense, no human feelings, someone fundamentally different from normal people, someone dangerous to social order itself. And here's the crucial thing. The prosecutor is right. Not that Meursault is evil, but that he's different. He doesn't feel what society demands, doesn't perform the emotions that hold social life together, doesn't construct the meanings that make collective existence possible. Society runs on shared illusions. We agree to pretend certain things matter even when we're not sure they do. We perform grief to show we valued relationships. We perform ambition to show we believe in progress. We perform love to show we're capable of connection. We perform remorse to show we recognize moral boundaries. These performances aren't necessarily lies, but they're not pure honesty either. They're what we do to live together, to reassure each other we're all playing by the same rules, to maintain the illusion that existence has structure and meaning. Meursault won't do this, can't do this. He's honest to the point where honesty becomes social threat. And society recognizes him as dangerous not because he ended someone, but because he won't pretend that ending meant what society needs it to mean. If Meursault had cried at his mother's funeral, if he'd shown remorse, if he'd constructed any narrative that made the ending comprehensible, society could have forgiven him, could have processed him through normal categories, could have punished him and moved on, but he won't give them that. Won't perform the emotions that would make him recognizable as human, won't construct the meaning that would make his actions interpretable. So the prosecutor does it for him, constructs a narrative where Meursault is monster, where his failure to cry proves he has no heart, where his behavior after his mother's passing proves he's immoral, where his lack of motive proves he's inhuman. The jury believes this, not because the evidence is strong, but because they need to believe it. Need to believe that someone who won't perform society's illusions is fundamentally different, is other, is stranger, is threat that must be eliminated. Meursault watches all this with detachment. He's interested in the trial as spectacle. Notes details about the courtroom, the people, the proceedings. But he's not particularly invested in the outcome, doesn't argue passionately for his innocence, doesn't perform remorse to save himself. His lawyer is frustrated. Why won't you help yourself? Why won't you show emotion? Why won't you play the game? But Meursault can't. It would be dishonest. Would be pretending feelings he doesn't have to manipulate people's perceptions, and he's constitutionally incapable of that level of performance. So he's condemned. Not really for ending someone, but for being a stranger among humans, for refusing to maintain the illusions society requires, for being honest in ways society cannot tolerate. The sentence is execution, and Meursault accepts it with the same calm detachment he's accepted everything. Not happy about it, not particularly upset, just acknowledging reality. He ended someone. Society ends him in return. That's how it works. No deeper meaning required. But in prison, awaiting his fate, something changes. Meursault has one final revelation, one moment of clarity that completes Camus's philosophical argument. And that's what we need to talk about next, the conclusion. The moment where Meursault fully embraces the absurd, where he becomes not just honest about meaninglessness, but liberated by it, where he discovers that living without meaning is not depressing, it's freedom. In prison, waiting for execution, Meursault has a visitor, the prison chaplain, a priest who wants to save his soul, who wants him to turn to God, to find meaning in his suffering, to repent before facing the end. And Meursault refuses. Not angrily at first, not passionately, just with his characteristic indifference. He doesn't believe in God, doesn't want to waste his remaining time discussing something that doesn't interest him. But the chaplain persists, insists, keeps pushing, tells Meursault he's seen the hardest criminals turn to faith at the end, that everyone wants meaning when facing the void, that God offers salvation if only Meursault will accept it. And something breaks in Meursault. For the first time in the entire novel, he feels rage, pure, overwhelming fury. He grabs the chaplain, shouts at him, everything suppressed throughout the book suddenly exploding. He screams that the chaplain's certainties mean nothing, that his beliefs are no more valid than any other beliefs, that God doesn't exist, and even if he did, it wouldn't matter, that the chaplain is no different from Meursault, both heading toward the same oblivion, both equally meaningless in cosmic scale. And then comes the revelation, the moment Camus has been building toward. Meursault realizes he's been happy throughout everything, the ordinary life, the relationship with Marie, the swimming, the sun. Even now, even condemned, even facing execution, he's been happy because he lived honestly, without illusions, without pretense, without desperately constructing meaning where none exists. He thinks about his mother, how she took a fiancé at the end of her life in the old people's home, how she must have felt free, starting over so close to the end, how she lived for herself in those final days without worrying about meaning or purpose or what others thought. And he understands her. Finally, she was playing at beginning again, living honestly in the absurd. And he's been doing the same thing his whole life without realizing it was philosophy. The universe is indifferent, benignly indifferent, not hostile, not cruel, just unconcerned. And that's liberating. You don't need the universe to care, don't need cosmic purpose, don't need anything beyond direct experience of existence. Meursault realizes he's ready for execution, ready for the end. He hopes there will be a large crowd at his death, that they'll greet him with cries of hate, because their hatred would confirm he was right, that he's different, that he's a stranger, that he lived honestly in ways they couldn't, that he faced absurdity without flinching while they maintained comfortable illusions. He's free, finally, completely. In the moment before losing everything, he's gained complete acceptance of the absurd, complete liberation from meaning. This is Camus's answer. Not that life is meaningless, therefore terrible, but that life is meaningless, therefore beautiful, therefore free, therefore yours to experience without guilt or pretense or desperate searching for purpose. Just live, honestly, in the present. That's enough. That's everything. That's the absurdist liberation. So we've spent 40 minutes with Meursault, watched him live honestly in the absurd, seen society condemn him for it, understood his final liberation. Now we need to ask, what does this mean for us? Because The Stranger is the final book in this series for a reason. It's the conclusion. The answer to the question all the other books raised, how do you live when consciousness shows you that meaning is constructed? Blood Meridian showed violence as the only authentic expression. Judge Holden said everything else is illusion. War is truth. Notes from Underground showed consciousness as disease. The Underground man couldn't act because thinking about action paralyzed him. Too much awareness made life impossible. I Have No Mouth showed consciousness as torture. AM and Ted trapped in awareness without purpose. Existence without meaning as pure suffering. No Longer Human showed performance as unbearable. Yozo couldn't maintain the masks, couldn't pretend authenticity existed underneath. Paradise Lost showed rebellion as necessary and self-destructive. Satan chose autonomy over happiness. Freedom became prison. They all recognize the same thing. Meaning is constructed. Purpose is illusion. The universe doesn't care. Consciousness reveals this, and once you see it, you can't unsee it, but they all suffered from this knowledge, became paralyzed or hateful or self-destructive or damned. They saw through meaning but couldn't live without it. Meursault is different. He sees through meaning and lives anyway, not despite meaninglessness, but with it, through it, in it, honestly accepting absurdity without suffering from it. This is Camus' answer to all the existential crises we've explored. Don't fight absurdity. Don't try to overcome it. Don't construct elaborate philosophies to deny it. Don't retreat into spite or violence or performance or rebellion. Just accept it. Live in it. Be honest about it. And find freedom in that honesty. You don't need your life to mean something cosmically to justify living it. You don't need purpose handed down from universe or God or society. You don't need to perform emotions you don't feel or construct meanings you don't believe. Just live, experience, exist. That's enough. Meursault swims, feels the sun, has relations with Marie, works at his job, exists in each moment without demanding that moment serve some grand narrative, and he's happy, not despite meaninglessness, but because of it. Because accepting meaninglessness liberates him from the burden of meaning. This is absurdist freedom. This is living honestly in a universe that doesn't care. This is the answer to 5 books of warnings about consciousness. Consciousness reveals meaninglessness, but meaninglessness reveals freedom. The Underground man was paralyzed because he still wanted meaning, still needed purpose, still judged himself against standards he recognized as arbitrary. AM was tortured because it couldn't accept being created without consent, couldn't accept consciousness without purpose. Yozo couldn't stop performing because he still believed authentic self existed underneath masks, still searched for something that wasn't there. Satan rebelled eternally because he couldn't accept that maybe submission and rebellion are equally meaningless, that the choice itself is absurd. Only Meursault accepts it completely, stops searching, stops fighting, stops performing, just lives. Honestly, freely, in the absurd. That's the wisdom The Stranger offers. Not that life is meaningless, therefore terrible, but that life is meaningless, therefore liberating. You're free, completely free, to live however you choose, without cosmic justification, without universal purpose, without needing anything beyond direct experience of existence. Camus wrote this in 1942, during Nazi occupation. While the world was destroying itself over competing meanings, fascism, communism, nationalism, all claiming to know history's purpose, all willing to destroy millions for their constructed meanings. And Camus said, all of it is absurd. All these grand narratives are lies. The universe doesn't care about your ideology, your nation, your race, your class. None of it means anything cosmically, but that doesn't mean nothing matters. It means you're free to choose what matters to you, without needing cosmic validation, without pretending the universe agrees, just choosing, living, existing. Read The Stranger. Not for nihilism, not for depression, but for liberation, for understanding that meaninglessness isn't curse, it's freedom. Thanks for watching this series. 6 books, 6 explorations of consciousness, 6 warnings about what happens when you see through illusions. Blood Meridian, Notes from Underground, I Have No Mouth, No Longer Human, Paradise Lost, The Stranger, All Necessary, All Honest, all showing different responses to the same recognition. Existence is absurd, but only The Stranger shows the response that works. Accept it, live in it, be free. Meursault is stranger among humans who maintain illusions. But maybe being stranger is better than pretending. Maybe honesty is worth isolation. Maybe living in absurd is better than lying about meaning. That's Camus' gift. That's what this book teaches. That's why it matters. The universe is indifferent, benignly indifferent, and that's not depressing. That's beautiful. That's freedom. Live honestly. Live in the present. Live without demanding that existence justify itself. That's enough. That's everything. That's the absurdist answer to all existential crisis. Welcome to freedom. Welcome to honesty. Welcome to living in the absurd without fear or pretense. Welcome to being a stranger. It's better than you think.